This is your moment. This is your time. Embrace every milestone. No looking behind. What's your vantage point?
Welcome to Vantage Point, where we talk about what you're thinking. This is your girl, Serge Marie.
And I'm Natalie.
Hello, I'm Lori.
Hi everybody, I'm Alexa Hawkins.
And we are the ladies of Vantage Point. Today's show, we will be discussing new age versus traditional schooling.
We all have different learning styles, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
And teaching styles.
Absolutely.
And I know personally, I know what my children's styles is.
Mm-hmm.
I personally am a visual learner. I know some of my kids are. But what are some of your thoughts on that?
Well, it's funny you should talk about that because I was thinking the other day about the various styles that are out there. And I know that traditionally some people think that it's very important. Some people think that there's not a lot of science to it. But there are four main ones that seem to come up all the time. And that's, as you say, visual. That's one of the main ones. And there's auditory, people who learn by listening. People who are kinetic learners, and they are more tactile. So you'll see them in the classroom. They're working with blocks. They need things that they can physically touch. And then there's also social. People who need to be in a social environment. And my educator here is nodding her head.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was just thinking in terms of myself, I am more of a visual learner. And I know that because if I'm being introduced to you for the first time, and you say, hi, my name is Natalie, I will see the letters in my head.
Right.
And I'll remember Natalie because I will actually see your name written out in my head. My son, he's just the opposite. So he's very musically inclined. Everything is lyrical to him.
Right.
So the sound of Natalie will stay in his mind.
Right.
So what about you guys?
That's interesting.
I am definitely a kinetic learner. I need to touch everything. That's why when I'm laughing, I'm like,
Because I'm the same way.
yes. And so I'm definitely a person who I have to touch it. I have to feel it. I have to see it. If I see Natalie, I want to say, ooh, I remember maybe her earrings or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think you may have a combination of learning styles at times, depending on the situation. And as far as remembering names, everybody's, hey baby, hey sugar, how you doing?
That's when you
because
know.
that just
know.
not. I haven't found a learning style to memorize names yet. So I'm definitely a kinetic learner, and also I'm a visual learner as well.
Yeah.
What about you, Nat?
Certainly combination of all of them. It depends where I'm at.
Exactly.
And I also learned that, in different seasons of my life where I was a different kind of learner. Just like when I'm in my professional role, I learn differently. From socially, it's very, very different. But I, too, am a kinetic learner. I love to touch, feel. Even when I talk, I tend to gesticulate a lot. Like I have to be all out there.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely, that type of learner. But I'm also very social and interpersonal. So like when we're talking about, oh, I love these earrings. I like to know about, a story with the earrings, and I can make connections with the story. I remember names with stories, right? And so, I learned this from Bill Clinton, our former president. Yeah, so he used to collect business cards, and then on the back of them, he would write, okay, I met Lori, who she had an L on her shirt, and she has a 7-year-old boy who just had a dog who passed away.
That would work for me.
So then the follow-up was, hey, I remember, talking to you about your son and his dog passed away. How's he doing? How's the dog? And so now you have a connection,
Those are
right?
great social
So that's how you...
Those are great.
Right, so that's how I
social
learn,
cues.
but that's also how I remember things and people. I need a story.
You know what goes
to go
along
there.
with that, though? The fact that you write it down.
Right.
Because there's something about writing that also makes
Right.
it stays in your memory longer.
Yeah.
I know that people do that a lot. Some people are natural note takers.
Yeah.
I'm a natural note taker. I don't go back and read my notes all the time. But I take minutes, I take notes, I'm organized because there's something about writing it down. It's like that visual kinetic connection.
But you have to be careful with that whole how you remember people. There was a story of a young lady, an African American girl, for the yearbook. And they wrote black girl to hold the spot in the yearbook. And they did not go back. Don't judge your book advisor. I've been in your book advisor before. That job is real. But they did not go back and edit it. And in every yearbook where her picture was supposed to be, it said black girl.
Poor baby.
So you know what I mean? Just be careful on how you write that down. To make sure
Now, do you believe that teachers are mindful of the different types of learning styles? Because I know me personally being visual, so as you're talking, I'm painting a picture, and it's like a movie. And there are times people might think, okay, she's not responding. Does she get it? Is she connecting? No, I'm processing everything that you're saying.
Yeah.
But I feel like some teachers, and please correct me out if I'm wrong, are not sensitive to that.
Yeah.
It's not that you're not sensitive, you're taught that, you're trained. You know, as a teacher, these are the different learning styles. Teachers are the ones that came up with the learning style categories. Look, we're definitely aware. It's just if you learn a certain way, you're more prone to do things a certain way. So if you're right-handed and you're creating a cup that's for, you have to determine the hand, you're going to make it more accessible for a right-handed person just because that's your learning style. So you just have to have a teacher who's very, very cognitive of that fact and that they're intentional with making sure that they appeal to each learning style. So when you find a teacher like that, you've got an A+ teacher.
And how about a parent or a guardian who says, you know, I took the time to really discover my child's learning style. This is how they learned. This is what makes them ticks. This is, you know, how they respond to certain things. And so that communication, one, taking the time to discover it, but also saying to the teacher, you know, this is how they learn. I got to be honest, I've had, you know, some years in the classroom and I loved it. And that is a gift. And I salute teachers who do that job. But the best teachers know how to make an adjustment. And it's tough because you have to, you know, constantly make that adjustment and constantly survey where your students are. Are they getting it? Do I need to make an adjustment?
I always thought teaching was a calling.
It
It
truly
is.
I always thought teaching was a calling.
Absolutely is.
I mean, we have a lot of
is.
teachers in my family, and I've seen teachers who are so dedicated. They have that kind of a gift. They're thinking in terms of the 30+ kids that are in their classrooms, and they just have a natural gift for pulling it out of people. On the other hand, I've also seen teachers that they were there for the check.
Yes.
And you knew they were there for the check, and it was kind of
And
like,
the kids know they're there
and
for
the kids knew they were there for the
Yes.
check.
I think one thing as parents when we're talking about learning styles, a friend of mine gave me a kind of a template, a letter that I just sent to my students, my kids' teachers before they even met them. So I sent one to my son's teacher and I said, you know, I would like to introduce my son to you. This is the way that he learns. These are some of his strengths.
That's
and these
awesome,
are some
Lord.
things that you could use, you know, I could help you help him understand strategies better. These are some things that we're working on. These are the things that we worked on last year. I look forward. This is a key, parents. This is the key when dealing with teachers. The word partnering.
That's right.
Because we want you to partner with us. And if I know that there's somebody coming into this that wants to partner with me at the end to meet the same goal, which is to make my child better, that will be great. In addition to that, I also posted a picture of him having fun and with his family so she can be introduced to my child the way I want her to be introduced.
Awesome.
I took control of the way that she was introduced to my son. She responded back to me and she said, I've never had anyone write a letter so beautiful to me.
Right.
Weeks later, I got another email that said, your son has been admitted into the honors English program, all based on this conversation that I had with her, but I controlled. The other thing is, as teachers, you know your child is a lot. Okay? You know that your child is worth. Don't try and sneak up on me. Right? Don't try and sneak that thing up on me. Give me some ideas of how to deal. You can't even deal with your child.
As
But you
parents,
need
you
to
do
work a
know.
miracle. You
Parents,
know what I'm saying? You know.
But you know what I love about that letter too, in addition to the teaching styles, I remember you saying that these are his weaknesses.
Yes.
This is what distracts him. And you know, if I got a letter like that, I'm like, high five, partner, like we in partnership together.
That's awesome.
But you know, there's this whole new movement, right? Well, it's not new, but it's trending big time. Homeschooling. Okay, so here's an interesting piece of data. From 2000 and 2015. 2015, it was reported that there are 2.3 million homeschool students in the U.S. In 2010, it grew from 2010 to 2015 by 2 million students, right?
Wow.
And the years after, it increases anywhere between 2 to 8% annually, right? So there's this movement with homeschool teaching. And so one of the things that I'm kind of attracted to, I don't know if I'm called to it, but as a like if you were a homeschooler, you can make a quick adjustment to your child's learning style. It's like a made-to-order lesson plan for 1 to 3 or however many children you're teaching at home, right? But the movement or the trending is beyond the U.S. It's all over the world. You're seeing it in the
Wow.
UK, in Kenya, South Korea, Russia, all over the world. But what I thought was very, very interesting in the UK, so many teachers are stepping away from the profession. They're resigning because, much like here in the U.S., they're consumed with the job of having to track students, having to prepare them for test scores, standardized testing, and learning basic concepts. So in
Plus
the UK,
be a policeman.
plus being
Be
police,
a
all these other
counselor, yeah.
mom, counselor, all these things in the classroom.
Yes.
And so, over in the UK, there are a lot of homeschool students, and these teachers are either leaving because the job is so taxing, or there's such a rise.
Now, with
in
homeschooling, is there a certification process though?
I don't know.
It's the state sets the standard.
Okay.
So it might be different from one state, New Jersey might be different from New York. But
Okay.
it's the parent's job to kind of look into it and find out. I had the opportunity, as an educator and a hardcore advocate for education, I had some preconceived notions about homeschooling. I taught ninth grade, so I would receive some kids who had been homeschooled from K to 8. And some of the ones that I've met were a little different. They were a little different.
Meaning as far as
Socially,
okay.
socially, academically, though.
That was my
every
concern.
experience
Yeah.
that I've had, and I can only speak about my vantage point. Every experience I've had, they've always excelled academically. Socially, it's a little bit different because they don't have that interaction as much. Now through social media,
Sure.
they're able to join these different groups and kind of create their own communities to
Right.
help each other.
Right.
And there's some research now, because that's where people are skeptical when it
Yeah.
comes to homeschooling. And I'm not a homeschooler. I have observed one homeschool in particular, and I was just in awe of the awesome work that was going on. But in terms of socializing a child, they're also saying that homeschool students socialize better with different people of all ages because they're not just around,
Yeah.
their peer group. So that's an argument as well. But, it's like anything. It's kind of like, I always say every school has the same issue. It's just who hides it better, right? Same thing with different types of instruction. Who's taking the time to create quality instruction for this child, whether it's
But
in a classroom
sometimes as a
or
teacher,
homeschool.
you're so distracted with the other crazy things that you have to
Absolutely.
do as a teacher that you don't have time to teach.
Right.
You have to worry about, making
homeschool.
sure that you have at
any-
any school. I would
Okay.
think.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're more so,
But not in a homeschool.
right at the
but not
homeschool
the
that
homeschool.
I went to. You're focusing on these, however many children. I mean,
2, 3, 4.
I was amazed at how many. There was one woman homeschooling 12 kids.
Woo.
First
Now
of
that's
all,
a- that's a
Is that
school.
her kid? So the 12
more than a
Teacher
homeschool.
student ratio? I don't even
Shoot,
know.
I get right.
Is that the ratio?
Well, you have some
Amazing.
classrooms that are 30.
Right.
Yeah.
You can have a classroom of
And
30.
is that
Of
even
homeschooling.
legal? I don't even know. No, that's in a public
In a
school.
public school
But in a
system, okay.
homeschool, she's saying some people taught or can have
Amazing.
1 to
Well,
12.
how-
If you-
children you have,
when my
right?
son was, when we moved to New Jersey for a minute, my son was in pre-K, and we moved like just outside of the time frame when he could sign up. So I homeschooled him for 1 year.
Right.
He did, because I could not have done it without him. I honestly could not have done it without him. The grace came on me. We converted our basement. We had the counting thing here and the reading thing there. I researched the curriculum. I was following a certain curriculum throughout the year. We had poetry readings. We had poetry memorization. On Fridays, I put up the pup tent and we would climb inside. And if you could recite your poem well, then you got a special prize. I mean, it was like a lot of energy, a lot of focus. We had field trips. We had the special day where your family gets to come visit you. Which is, your sister, your brother, and your dad come down in the basement, and they get the cookies we made, and they get to see your progress. I mean, we poured so much energy into it, and it was great, and I could understand my son and exactly what he needed. The day that the school year was over, the grace lifted off of me.
For 1 year.
It was like, and we're done, and we're out, and we're done. And I say that because I think homeschooling is great, but I
Yeah.
think some people can do it and some people can't.
Right.
And I don't think that
Absolutely.
parents should feel bad because,
Absolutely.
at the
Yeah.
time when I was
Absolutely.
doing it, there was this movement of do you stay home with your kids and do you go to homeschooling or do you, and all these choices that you have. And, parenting is hard, period.
Yeah.
So not to make anyone feel pressure because there are some people who are so gifted at it and so wonderful at it. And then some people are like, no, my child needs to be with you.
Right.
Trust me.
Makes it hard to
That was me.
That I am definitely that parent. But even within that, with tradition, when I think of traditional education, I think of not only arithmetic, English, science, what we would the requirements, right? But I also, well, in my day, we also taught our children values, and there was some etiquette. I remember being taught how to sit, and it was. I mean, we had home ec. It was just what we thought was
right.
great. Remember home ec?
I forgot.
I love home ec.
Home ec gone.
I never take home ec.
But with this new age, because I have a daughter, she's a junior this year, and I said, well, is there home ec? She was like, home ec? What's a home ec? I was like, oh.
Home economics.
Yeah, I was like, home ec.
But you know what? But that speaks to what I'm thinking in regards to homeschool, that every child should be homeschooled.
Really?
Not so much so stay home with them every day.
Oh, I
But
see what you're going.
at home,
Yeah.
you should be schooling them on something.
Yeah.
Totally
We
agree with
rely
that. Yeah.
a lot on teachers. Even as an educator,
Yeah.
I rely a lot on the teachers to teach my son. But I have to take some ownership of it.
Right.
I have to, when he comes home, take a vested interest in what did you learn today?
Yeah.
What did your teacher teach you? Let me expose you to some cultural things. Let me take you to a museum
Yeah.
instead of just paying your taxes and saying you can pay for that.
We
downtown.
call that raising your kids. That was just straight out raising your kids. You were in charge of showing them the fork to use. You were in charge of all of that. That was just called raising your
All
kids.
other days, honey.
But I do have a question. What about discipline? What about disciplining your
yeah.
child?
I
Because
got discipline.
that parent, school, where does that fall? Because if
Well, see, in homeschooling, you don't have that problem.
Right,
Let's
right.
take. You don't have to take trips to the bathroom. You don't have to take trips to the car. You don't have to take any little special
so
trips.
true.
You just say, "Little boy, little girl, come and hand me." I mean, I'm for a whooping every now and then.
Right,
You do
right,
it
yeah.
once
I'm
or
a little old
twice.
school.
You don't
I'm
have to
gonna
do it often.
I'm with you on that.
So that's a good point. That's a
Word,
really good
word.
point.
Well, and I think you're at a disadvantage as an educator. You want us to be the parent, you want us to be the disciplinarian, you want us to do all these things, and as soon as we go to handle it the way I think it should be handled, you on the news.
Yeah.
Right.
You on the news, and parents, I have learned, I love parents, God knows, but they will turn on you so
5
fast.
seconds.
Really?
3.
They will turn on you so fast. The parents that you try and help, and you really go that extra mile and kind of go beyond the call of duty for, let them get an opportunity to. I've been burned several times, but it is teaching is a calling.
It is.
It is a calling that you can't be released from until God Himself says, "Your 1 year, you served your 1 year. Well done, not good and faithful servant. You are done."
Well, wait a minute. I served several years. I think I'm good too, right?
Yeah, you're well done. Well, you got more years to teach. Homeschooling thing.
But even within that, the system has changed dramatically. When I went to private school for the first 8 years of my life.
You went to private
I was a
school?
Catholic girl
Don't
for
you
8
remember
years.
your little
For 8
sister?
years.
I was real cute.
I know you are.
However, I remember being disciplined by the nuns. I was scared of them. We didn't
What
have
kind of
time out.
discipline? What did they do?
We had a ruler, and if you were, of course, I had a mouth on me, not too bad, but it was, and I would have to take my hand out, and they would smack your hand. You guys didn't.
That doesn't surprise me.
Oh, okay. Well, we were disciplined in school, in addition to being disciplined at home. However, one of the things that I love to do, I call it a pulse check. I'll ask my kids, what's going on in school? And I was shocked that my middle schooler shared that she had a student that called another child an N-word. Now, in my day, you didn't hear things like that. And it has changed, but it's been, I don't want to say permissible, but it seems to be okay or the norm. Because I think of an educator, to me, it's like a second parent. It's a person like, here, I'm giving you my precious cargo, my beautiful,
Right.
valuable
But
child.
do you really think of them as a second parent?
And it
I do,
depends,
I
but
do.
it depends
Does
when
it
you grow
change?
up,
I
too,
do.
and
It
what
also
school
depends
you
on
go
who the
to.
educator is.
Agreed. But
Because you can't let everybody be a parent. But sometimes parents will say exactly what you said. We're partnering. You know what? As soon as I do something you don't like, you don't want me to be the parent no more.
here's the thing. I am that old school traditional parent where I'm going to take your word first. Now
And that
I'm
can work against
realizing,
you too.
but exactly, but
Yep.
that has come back to bite me actually with
Yeah.
one of my girls.
Right.
And I was like, Mom, you didn't believe me. I'm like, because I'm thinking,
Right.
this person's an educator. They would not lie to me. I
Right.
trust you.
Yeah.
And come to find out, my child was right.
Yeah.
That was an eye opener for me.
And there's some children who play the game.
Show
You know,
enough.
That is
I mean,
true.
they play
Show
a
enough.
That is true.
good game, and I'm like, encore! Somebody get this kid in the water, pull the footage. And no, I'm saying, like, I remember having to pull footage, and thank you God that there was
Wow.
cameras in place because of the accusations on how staff handled things. Like, even as in administration, you are responsible for safety, and sometimes I think that could be the benefits to homeschooling, because the professionals are so overly concerned with staying out of the court of law.
Come
Right,
on.
that is-
Right,
a bit,
right,
and it's
right.
Absolutely.
to the detriment of the child. Right?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Now, on the flip side, right, there's this talking about movements. It's called the free range children.
Free range parenting and free range schooling.
Like free range.
That's what I've heard.
Like free range chickens. I mean, no, I shouldn't
I've
say
heard it.
chickens.
I've
I
heard
shouldn't
it.
say chickens. It was a woman who, her name is Lenore Skenazy. She was, if you just research her, she was termed the world's most terrible mother.
Why?
Because she would just let her children, they would learn through osmosis. They would just go out into the world and do whatever. Their curiosity just kind of led them to wherever, and that's what she believed, how they would learn, right? And so she has a quote here. She says, yes, we're supposed to keep our children safe, but she says, quote, I'm not anti-safety, but I don't think kids need a security detail just before they leave their house.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So she
Where
was
does she live? She don't live in the hood.
girl. Hold up. Wait a minute. But this all started in New York City. So when you were talking about Catholic school, I was like,
I know y'all New Yorkers. That's what y'all. You a free range chicken.
no. No. Because my mama, right?
You got osmosis. You got osmosis.
Not I. Because she went to Catholic school. I was in New York. I'm a product of New York City public school. But they believe that children, the parents who subscribe to this ideology, that children learn through their curiosity. There's no tests. There's no homework. There's no rules. They're just kind of like
Well,
out
homework, they
there.
at home already.
See, but one of the things about this particular woman, I think, and I may have the numbers wrong, but her child was like 9 years old or something, and put him on the bus and had him go from Brooklyn to
She had him going like it was a bus and a train.
yeah,
and
it's
he had
like
to
she
figure
put
it
him
out.
somewhere
Did he do
and
it, though?
figure it out and
He
get your way home. So wait, now the good news unsupervised is that unsupervised, completely unsupervised.
She wasn't like hiding behind the trash can.
Unsupervised. Gave him a map, gave him his pass, and said, "Figure it out."
Now, see, for my son.
Now the good news is she understood her son.
Right.
And when we talk about homeschooling, she understood her son and she knew what his capabilities are.
Right.
Not just like you're thinking, I'd be thinking like you're in the woods, you're passing.
Right.
It's like no, she was at home. So that's why she was labeled the worst parent.
Right. And they want them to learn through their mistakes. That's how they learn to
Yeah.
make
Ooh, that's too
judgments.
risky.
Okay.
But it transcends beyond the learn. Like part of it is how they learn in general, but even in their parenting. So even like eating, if I want to have peanut butter and noodles, go for it. Let's have it. You're not gonna waste my noodles and my peanut butter in my house.
So and there's no bedtime.
No bedtime.
Stay up as late
It's
as you want. It's like the idea is that your child knows what they need. Your child knows what's best for them. There's something innate in your child that is curious and wanting to learn and wanting to reach out and let them lead you. So the emphasis is on the child and on a lot of independence, and your child will make a way, and you just facilitate.
Exactly. But things are changing so much. The school system has changed so much. I had the privilege of working in the only school for African Americans in the state of Delaware for 16 years. That's how long I worked there. But it was the only school that African Americans could go to. And I know some people will not agree with me, and it does not negate the hard work that Dr. King and other civil rights activists, Aretha Franklin, one of our queens that went on to glory. But I really, really think we lost something with desegregation. Not so much that we weren't allowed. I think we were wrong in the whole premise of separate but equal. And I don't believe in separation. God is a God of unity and order. But I think that old school mama, that parenting one that you said, there were some things that, I don't know why, I'm not saying it's right, but there were some things that I could get my African American students to do that teachers that look like me just couldn't, based solely on the color of their skin.
Wow.
They can be the most phenomenal teacher in the world, but it was just something about them having an African American teacher that they just drew to.
Can relate to.
But here's the other thing. My non-African American students, I still got that same reaction from. So it was like, it's harder for my African American students to accept it from somebody that didn't look like them. The strangest statistic. But as you can see, African Americans are leaving the teaching profession in droves. My husband did his doctoral dissertation on the gatekeeper. So there's a test that you have to take in order to become an educator that a lot of African Americans had a hard time passing. And so instead of me trying to keep paying to take this test and getting stuck in the routine of not having a job or getting into the TEP program, the teacher education program, they just drop out. So what's your thought on how things are going with these new trends of education?
So, a couple of things, with the separation. So there's equality and equity, and they are not the same thing, right? So equality is sameness, right? It's the same thing, and so I'm offering the same education. Equity is fairness.
Yes.
Well, how do we get to that place where we're fair? I think about the $100 race, right? I don't know if you've ever seen it, right?
Yeah.
So here I have this $100 bill, and I say, you here in the front row, you can access this $100 bill in 30 seconds. It's yours if you get here, but you down the block around the corner, you have the same opportunity. You got to get here in 30 seconds though.
Yeah.
So you have the same thing, but is it fair?
Right.
And I think that's kind of what happened. I get that, and I don't think I've ever even explored that. That's interesting. But I do know that, or I would submit to you this thought: could it be that the response you get from your students from either race is because the anointing of teaching is on you?
That is true.
So that's
what I
a
was
whole
thinking.
other variable.
That's what I was
That's a
thinking.
whole other thing to consider.
That is the truth.
But there are some phenomenal educators who are not certified, and they had the clock begins to tick, and then they the pressure mounts, or they're not able to pass, and they keep, now it's a financial burden, and they have to transition. So now it's like, well, what's up with this test? What needs to change there so we can diversify? Or have a better pool of teachers, particularly African American teachers.
Yes.
It's important.
And male African American teachers.
Male.
Yes.
I think
That's what I meant, male.
Huge. That's a
Right.
huge deficit. I remember when my son was in school, and this goes to cultural sensitivity. If you could just be more mindful of black boys and what's against black boys. My son is, because I had homeschooled him, I knew he was aces in math, aces in reading. I knew where he was. So when he went to school, this is like maybe first and second grade, he took a test, and I got this notice that he was in remedial math. And I was like, okay, now that does not add up.
I said, Robert will fire.
Did I do that man a job?
I am going to tell you.
So I went, and parental involvement, I went and I called the school, and I got a chance to talk to the teacher, and I was like, I really don't understand. She goes, well, it's here in the paper, like, that's just it. And I was like, no, there must be something else. I was like, no, well, it's here in the paper, that must be it. And I said, okay, can I see his actual test? And she was like, I don't know why you want to, but okay. I'm looking through the test, the booklet, and because I know my son, he literally went, oh, this is interesting. Boring. Oh, that's fun. And he was picking out the ones that he wanted to do, and he was skipping the others because he was either bored or it just didn't appeal to him.
Wow.
Right.
He didn't realize what a test meant.
Wow.
And I think when you have people of color who are working with people of color, or even sensitive-minded others, it really doesn't have to be. I think we should all be in on this together.
I
Absolutely.
But
totally
just to
agree
be
with that.
sensitive, that you don't just go straight to the numbers. You think about the child, and you kind of, get some understanding along with the numbers that you're seeing.
And we have to get over that whole color thing. Because I know some teachers that taught at the school that I taught that was predominantly African American, that were other races, and can teach you under a table. But already sometimes parents come in ready to combat just solely based on the color of their skin. So if I could, as an educator, I just have a few tips I would suggest. As a parent, things to kind of make your students' matriculation through the educational system a little bit better. For instance, don't let your first interaction with the teacher be a negative one. They're calling you because your child has done something. Have that positive interaction. Volunteer at your school. Get familiar with the administrators. When you come and pick up your child, you are not only representing yourself, but you're representing your child. So when you come, please do not come with a headscarf on. Please do not, because you might think that that's think that that's my prerogative, but I know the conversations that are had when you walk out the door.
Yes,
and then now
unfortunately,
talking
you're
about
right.
you and putting a negative connotation on your child. When you walk into the school, put some lipstick on,
That's
or
right.
you put some chapstick on, get some Vaseline, get some chicken if you got to. Put some oil on them lips.
Man.
And when you walk in there, make sure that you're representing your child well.
Yeah.
When they get to high school, it's not the time to pull out. That is the time to kick it into high gear.
right.
Sometimes, like your
That's
free
a
range
good
friend.
point, because the
That's very
assumption is, now they're nearly a young adult. They can articulate and defend and advocate for themselves, and that's not true.
that's
You
a
need
very
to
good point.
investigate. You need to ask questions. You need to create your partnership with the teacher.
Excellent.
What I do know, though, is how things changed in general. You talked about desegregation, or just from even 10 years ago, 20 years ago to today. We're failing as a nation. We are not performing like we used to. But if you go deeper and you look at black and brown students, it's terrible. I mean, the numbers are awful. So we have to do something. We have to do something. Hear that, Secretary of Education for the United States of America? We need to do something. And I would start with talking to the people who are at the ground level working with those babies.
Awesome.
So this has been, did y'all get some stuff out of
I
this?
did.
Got
This
some
is
exciting
good.
stuff. We're going to go ahead, we're going to post some tips and messages. We want to hear from you. We want to know if you gleaned anything from this. If you're a homeschool parent, we want to hear from you. If you're a parent who has kids in the public education system, or private, or however, we want to hear from you. So please visit us at Vantage Point, the ladies of Vantage Point on Facebook. That's our Vantage Point. What's yours?
What's your vantage